Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at two big snowstorms that will be taking place. One is ongoing out west, and we actually could have more out west, by the way. And then we also are looking at potentially multiple snowstorms out east as well. And we're going to be talking about all of these things within this video. Anyways, before I get into things, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. For today's comment of the day, I want to know, do you think that December will even feature any big snowstorms in the east at this point? Let me know in the comments down below what you think, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Let's get straight into this video, and first things first, we're taking a look here at our radar ongoing. There's multiple areas of storminess, one here out west. This is our big snowstorm that's developing. We'll take a zoomed in look in a moment. We do have some thunderstorm activity here in the south central United States. And then there is some storminess there for Arizona and maybe a bit of New Mexico as well at this point. Now let's go ahead and zoom in to obviously our big storm out west first. And let's just chop it in half. Let's take a look at the southern half first. And then we'll be taking a look at the northern half of it as well. Okay, so we can see a ton of precipitation moving onshore to most parts of California at this point. Even Los Angeles looks like they're going to be getting some rainfall very, very soon here. We do see very, very heavy snowfall here for the Sierra Nevadas there. We can see basically from Northern California all the way down to kind of the central regions of California there. We have very heavy snowfall coming down. And I'm not going to try to act like this is something super unusual. We do have very, I would say, multiple shades of blue in there, and that is indicating very heavy snowfall coming down at this point. My color table is made to mark about the 30 dBz mark is when it switches to blue. I made these radar color tables, by the way, in case you're curious. And 30 dBz, if you know what that means, you know that is very heavy snowfall. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. It just means very heavy snowfall. Let's go ahead and move this further north. Things are only going to get worse and worse there, but we're going to take a look at some model guidance in a little bit. We'll talk about what's upcoming. Now, for these northern regions, the precipitation has slowed down quite a bit here. We do still see some of this precipitation moving onshore to Washington and Oregon, especially just some showers. And again, over this mountain range here, the Cascades, we do see a bit of snowfall. We did see a lot more earlier on. We're seeing more snowfall the further east inland you go here. We see for Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, we do see a bit of snowfall coming down for these regions as well. And it is obviously accumulating pretty quickly, probably. Let's move down to some of these other areas of precipitation real quick. And first things first, we're taking a look here at kind of the southern four corner states. We actually do have some heavy showers or maybe even perhaps thunderstorms going on here, especially in these southern portions of Arizona and New Mexico. Kind of south of Phoenix there, we've seen some heavier showers and thunderstorms in this region. I don't think there's anything to be too concerned about. Obviously, precipitation is pretty rare in this region, but we have been seeing some as of lately. And on the northern extent of this, we did see some snowfall trying to mix in here for a little bit. So that is worth mentioning as well for those northern regions of New Mexico. And then finally, we do have some thunderstorms here for the south central United States as well. We do actually have I believe we have a general thunderstorm risk for a lot of these regions throughout the day today, maybe even further north. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about a slight risk of severe weather for regions further north than this, and we're going to take a look at that in a little bit. We'll talk about that potential risk as well. And later this week, we also have some potential for severe weather, so that's going to be worth mentioning as well. I think we could have multiple days of slight risk or maybe even enhanced we could be taking a look at, so we'll need to talk about that in a bit as well. Now here is our categorical outlook here from the Storm Prediction Center, and in this lighter green region here, that is our general thunderstorm risk, and at this point we just expect maybe some thunderstorms, but really no severe weather is expected. We do from time to time see some severe weather reports come in for these regions, but by any means it is not really expected. Now for this dark green region, this is what we call our marginal risk region, and this is where there is a very, very small risk of severe weather, and usually we do see some isolated reports in here, or maybe some clusters where there was a bigger area of thunderstorms that did cause some severe weather reports to come in. But in general, we're not expecting too much to occur. Now, it's mostly this region for northern and central Iowa and south central Minnesota that we're worried about, this slight risk region where we do expect potentially some scattered severe weather to take place within this region. I'm circling right there. Now, here is our simulated radar here from the European model, and this is about right now. We can see the heavy snowfall where it's actually at, so this is a good sign that this model is, onto something. Now, we can see that by the time we're reaching later this evening, this will be perhaps about, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., depending on your time zone. And really, we have a heavy corridor of snowfall here. And what's happened is we've seen this low pressure system kind of head south. And what it's about to do is horseshoe around and come up like this. This is what we've been talking about for a few days. And that actually, what ends up happening is it prolongs the snowfall for these regions. That curvature makes things last a little bit longer, and that will lead towards a bit more snowfall than if it was just moving in a straight line. And we can see this low pressure system really redevelops. The pressure generally moves like this. Our low pressure system is located right here. This is actually a bit further north than this model showed yesterday. And we actually have more snowfall in this area than the model showed yesterday as well. The northern four corner states there. And then we can also see for Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana, we are seeing moderate to heavy snowfall at that point. Now, as we move this along, you can see already by Thursday, December 16th, the morning hours, our low pressure system is a 972 millibar low pressure center over there in Canada. But all that snowfall has also moved north of the border there in Canada. But we already see another low pressure system probably just offshore trying to move onshore, bringing snowfall already again for these regions. Now, as it pertains to the severe weather risk, here is that cold front setting up. There's a lot of cold air pouring in behind this low pressure system right here, and actually the cold front probably extends from that low pressure system. We're seeing a lot of cold air wrap around this. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of moisture and warm air head up like this, and that is all going to clash together and create some sort of storminess for sure. We can see this low pressure system is moving up even further into Canada. It's actually a 968 millibar low pressure system at this point, which is very low in pressure, a very intense low pressure system. Cold front is probably about like this right now, and we can see a lot of that cold air, again, still pouring in behind this, and the warm air is still trying to meet it and battle this one out. I think the main area, unfortunately, for that severe weather risk is very similar to the other day. Something like this is what I would be looking for. And as we look at our actual CAPE real quick, we're just going to move on to the severe weather risk a little bit here. At this hour, it's actually not too high, but we have seen some hours in here where we do have 1,000 plus extending like this. And for this time of year, this is really all you need. With the ample amounts of cold air coming in, this amount of CAPE would really lead towards pretty good potential for severe weather. In here, we have about 1,500 to 2,000 CAPE, and this is going to be early on Friday. So kind of I'm watching Wednesday through Friday, especially here and maybe beyond for that severe weather risk mainly. Let's try to move this back and get back to the simulated radar here. So as we continue on with this, the cold front kind of doesn't really win out. It kind of sticks around, and I touched on this yesterday. The storminess is still here by Friday morning in that region, and we're going to need to watch for this because it could mean multiple days of severe weather. And you can see that front, what ends up happening is it becomes a stationary front for a while, which basically just means the cold air is pushing just as hard as the warm air, and that front, that boundary where that severe weather and thunderstorms and showers and all of it is developing is just staying where it's at because the cold air is not moving it more than the warm air is, and it's just sticking around. And that happens for a few days. This is by 5 a.m. on Saturday already, so we're already talking Thursday to Saturday morning. But by this point, you can see that cold air finally gets enough force to actually begin moving this front, and it becomes a cold front again, where it starts advancing further south. This warm air is not pushing quite as hard. There will be ample moisture available. As you can tell, there's storminess basically throughout this entire region. So we actually see a ton of moisture in place as this cold front moves through. And this is one of our first snowstorms here for the east. We could see snowfall developing in here as this front moves through. potential snowfall for these regions that we're going to need to watch for. This looks a lot like a Miller B nor'easter to me. It kind of moves in like this, moves offshore, and tries to move up like this. And these types of snowstorms that take this track typically do bring quite a bit of snowfall to this region, usually. So we will be watching for that, especially the southern extent where we can see it taking place on this frame. And eventually that does move offshore. Again, we see that this does develop into a Miller B nor'easter, although it does move pretty flat. So that will bring a little bit of some limited snowfall to this region especially. That cold front eventually moves through, and we see some cold air in place. The jet stream looks something like this. It's a very weak one, but we do see it looking something like this, where the warm air is trying to reinforce back to the west. This cold air is trying to head back into the east. So maybe this will be the beginning of that pattern switch, and we have been eyeballing that 20th, right around the 20th through the 22nd for that pattern switch to occur. So this might actually be the case. That might actually be what's happening here, but it does look pretty marginal at this point. What is interesting, though, is we do see a low pressure system developing right here. This is not a Miller B nor'easter. This is a classic example of a Miller A nor'easter, and these ones tend to be the big boys for sure. They kind of move in like this and start out offshore of the southeast and move all the way up the coast. And on this model run, take this with a grain of salt, guys, please. But we do see plenty of snowfall taking place in the Smoky Mountains there, and even areas further south than the Smoky Mountains, which would be quite interesting. By the next frame, our low pressure system has moved a little bit further north, but we do see that snowfall developing for the mid-Atlantic. It is a pretty limited area, and then what ends up happening is we get some heavy snowfall or mixing taking place here Wednesday at about, or sorry, this would be about Tuesday at about 8 p.m. or so on December 21st, but then it becomes all rain. Now, the interesting thing to note is if there's any more cold air than this, this is a 985 millibar low pressure system already. Very strong nor'easter developing. And really, I mean, we're taking a look at a very strong storm potentially. It's more about, okay, we have the signal for the storm. Now, will the models trend at there being more cold air available? Because if the jet stream does a little bit more of like, better yet, if the jet stream gets a little bit more volatile like that, what'll end up happening is this storm will develop, but it'll latch on to that motion in the atmosphere, and it'll take that track that the jet stream is taking, and that's what could lead towards a bigger snowstorm. But at this point, that is not what this model is showing. It's showing a jet stream that looks very flat like this, hardly doing any dipping. So this low pressure system kind of just goes its own way. It doesn't ever latch onto that. And we see this happen all the time. I would say probably 2 out of every 3 times it does not match up perfectly. Otherwise, we would have blizzards all the time, every single winter. So I would say about 2 out of 3 times it does not work out. It does not work out towards a huge blizzard. It works out more like this. And you can see this storm, even though it's a 983 millibar low pressure system, it actually innocently moves offshore. But what's interesting is this model does have cold air coming in right behind it. So if the timing can just switch up just a tiny bit, I mean, that does have some potential. The important thing is right now this model is showing that signal at a very large nor'easter developing at some point. Now, also, we have another huge snowstorm moving onshore to the west, and we're going to be talking about many of these throughout the coming 2 weeks, I would say, because it looks like the pattern is very sufficient for those types of storms, and obviously we've been touching on these every time they happen, so we will continue to keep you guys up to date with the snowfall in the west. Now, through the entire model run, here's the total snowfall. We could see just tons of it out west, obviously, and a lot of those storms kind of take a track that looks something like this. So what ends up happening is these areas get left out of the snowfall because the storm is moving to your northwest. So these areas stay kind of high and dry. Now, this pocket right here of snowfall comes from that nor'easter that tries to develop for a little bit. And honestly, a lot of these people that love snow would be happy with this. A lot of the people in here that hate snow would be very unhappy with this. But this does have potential to be less than this, and it has potential to be much, much bigger than that if the storm stays trending with the models. And again, if it trends it more cold, that jet stream dipping just a little bit further south, a lot of things can change because it is the longer range. So we're going to be watching for it. But as of right now, there is a signal at that snowstorm. Now, This Miller B nor'easter seems a lot more likely at this point. And within the purple areas, we do actually have 6 to 10 inches possible. And then even pink showing up, which is 10 inches plus. So we'll need to watch that for sure. Now we also have all these blues and grays around. And that's going to be generally your more minor snowstorm type impacts. We're talking a dusting, if anything, in the grays, and then 2 to 6 within those blue regions. Out west, though, we have plenty of the blues, which again is 2 to 6, plenty of the purples, which is 6 to 10, plenty of the pinks, which is 10 to 20, and we even have those pastels, the pastel blues, like you see kind of up here. I'm trying to circle an area where you can kind of just see those individually. That's about 20 to 30 inches, but these purplish ones are where you're at like 48 inches plus, and a lot of these regions, we'll zoom into the west here, but a lot of these regions actually are above 100 inches on the next 10 days, because this is a 240-hour model run here, which, 24 times 10. So we see these areas 92.6 approaching 100 inches. We see 84 here. We see 59 here. But what's important, because obviously that looks like under 100, obviously, we see a maximum of 175. So there is some areas in here, and I'm guessing multiple areas in Washington, Oregon, and California hit that number of 100 inches plus. But it's mostly mountaintops, mostly where people are not at. So that is very interesting, though. Over the next 10 days, over 100 inches. So that's over 10 inches a day. So very intense snowfall expected for the West. A lot of interesting things coming up. We'll be watching the situations with the western snowstorms. We'll be watching for the severe weather, and we will be watching for those East Coast snowstorms potentially as well over the coming days. So be sure to subscribe. Be sure to stay tuned, because we're going to be touching on all of these things throughout the winter months, and I'm so excited for what's upcoming to just watch it with you guys, track it with you guys, and just make more and more videos for you guys. So anyway, that's it for this video. Let's get into our confidence tab. We're at our classic 4 out of 6. Very easy to just go with the 4 out of 6. Since I've been touching on so many different topics, it's kind of like I'm very confident in the storm that's ongoing. I'm moderately confident in the one for the Northeast, the Miller B nor'easter, that kind of just impacts New England. And then I'm not so confident with the one for the East Coast, the big Miller A nor'easter potential. So that brings me right to that middle ground, and that's pretty typical of me. So that's just how I feel. For today's comment of the day, I asked you guys to touch on that severe weather threat a little bit. Do you expect any potential for a big severe weather outbreak? And James Marr said, I think there is a very limited risk of a large severe weather event like what we had in Kentucky. Prayers up for them. Obviously, everybody feels the same way. Prayers up for everybody out there that was impacted by those just devastating tornadoes. Now, I'm not even trying to compare it to the Kentucky event at all. But I do think there's a pretty limited risk at anything moderate or high risk per se. I think there's a really good chance at a couple slight risk days. And there's kind of a medium chance that we do see an enhanced risk, in my opinion. But I don't think it will be quite as high of a risk as we saw the other day, thankfully. For today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our platinum patrons, Bill Crates, James Wade, Dovin Nagel, Larry LePan, Mandy Birchfield, and Patrick Strickland as well. I would also like to thank our diamond patrons, Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Noah Harley, Michael Codalessa, Catbite, Charles Stinnett, Cindy Klein, Alan Goodmaben, Bill Dallas, Gary, John Calisi, Dwight Phelan, Stephen Cornetto, and Thomas D. Barr as well. I would also like to thank our channel members, Catbite, Stephen Fan, and Jeremy Cox also. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. I will see you guys in the next video.